call to order the City Council work sessions for City of East Grand Forks for September 24th, 2024. City Clerk, please call roll.
Mayor Steve Gander.
Here.
Council President Mark Olsted.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riepel.
Here.
Council Members Clarence Vetter.
Here.
Ben Pukshavinsky.
Here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Brian Larson. Karen Peterson.
Does term quorum number 1 consider solar energy systems ordinance? Mr. Gulsted.
Thank you. This is an ordinance that was being brought forward because we did have an application at the Water and Light Department for solar installation. However, that actually was withdrawn. I think the cost effectiveness of it by the individual was found not to be appropriate. But in that case, we still are bringing this forward. It's the only, we looked at, I met with Water and Light, the city, the building inspectors. We did look at several different ordinances and then kind of combined them. The only thing that's was a little bit different than, like, say, the model ordinance that the state has suggested on the websites are that the ground installed have been limited to, like, commercial industrial areas because of the size, and we were going to require that they be in the backyards anyway. And then with the side yard setbacks on most of the places in town, they wouldn't have been able to even be installed. So what we've done there is just put them as in the, like I said, the commercial and the industrial zones, and then the rooftops are an accessory structure in all of the zones. I don't know if there's any questions regarding it, but it's gone through fire, public works, and water and light as well, and they all had comments, and this is what we came up with.
Anybody have anything for Mr. Gulsted? Dale.
Have we had a lot of inquiries on solar systems and stuff in East Grand?
We have, on occasion, we'll have an inquiry, but there hasn't been any real serious thought behind it, except for we did have this one, and I think when they went through and just found out the costs of everything and the payback of 20 years or something, I think they just decided that it was not cost effective for them.
And now, did you say rooftop type solar panels are going to be?
They would be allowed in a residential area or in the other areas as well. The only thing that we restricted from residential areas was the ground mounted ones, which would be in the backyard, and then they cover a lot of area. Yep. And then setback.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? See none, sir. Appreciate it. Move on to number 2, consider updates to business regulations in city code. Ms. Nelson.
Thank you. In the packet, I included some suggestions and a link to the current city code to all the business licenses that we currently have. I'm not sure if you've taken too close a look at it. A big reason for this is I'd like to update what we have. We have a lot of PDFs on our website right now, and I'd like to update it to online so it can be submitted, and we're looking at online paying options. Just trying to streamline the process of this whole thing for both initial and renewals. Liquor licenses probably won't have a complete online option just because of the background checks and the stuff that would be needed. But I guess at this time, I'm just trying to streamline, update what we have. I think most of the code was passed, I think, in the 80s, so it's probably a good time to review. And we're also looking at trying to have like a recodification done. We've had a lot of ordinances that have been added, and I know we've updated the alcohol portion. We've updated our tobacco section a while back. And so we've actually been looking at doing a recodification and then being able to have digital city code online so people can actually search keywords and find what they're looking for within the city code, making it a little bit more user-friendly. So I guess at this time, I'm open to questions, comments, concerns. If you guys are okay with staff starting to kind of go through and just kind of go through, update the section and update some of the wording and only make it so we're requesting what's actually needed for the license instead of, I think we're asking for addresses for the past 3 years and reference, at least 4 references and, you know, quite a few things that weren't maybe necessary for all, at least all initial licenses.
Mr. Riepel?
Megan's worked pretty hard on this. This is the beginning of what she was dealing with. And she's pared it down to quite a lot less numbers. She's worked really hard on this. I've sat with her for an hour and a half one morning. We discussed it, and there are some of them that probably 50 years ago might have came into play, but I don't think so. There's a bunch that we can get rid of, and I would err to caution on this, saying that I would let Megan kind of go through it and handle what she's done so far. Has been real good.
Anybody else have anything? Ben?
Thank you. Megan, you mentioned taking payments online. If we take a credit card, are we going to charge a fee for processing the credit card?
So at this time, we take payments over the phone. We do not charge them the processing fee. That's a city cost.
Okay. I think the city should move to start collecting a fee on all credit card transactions, regardless of what it is. Those credit card fees are quite hefty. And I know this is kind of off topic, but for like water and light transactions, I use my bank card to pay that cost every month, and I know that fee is like 3 to 5% depending upon who it is. And if all residents are paying those fees with credit cards and things, the city is eating a lot of those costs. And there's probably quite a bit of savings there. But if we do move to taking online payments, that would be just my request.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Mayor, is that on? Or are you just scratching your?
I'm good.
You're Mr. Huddleston?
And I'll just keep it short. I think she did a nice job on this. I would just like to be involved a little bit more on it, because there's a couple of these, I know where the suggestions are coming from.
Yes, but are you talking about the plumber?
Well, the plumber, we could get rid of the plumber
Well,
for the
yeah,
most part.
because that
For
doesn't follow,
instance,
but
like the transient merchant.
we can talk about that because that's a separate conversation. I know where you're going with that exactly. Yeah.
But there's some of it that you need to keep, and then there's other things that you can weed out a little bit, so I'd just like to have a little bit more involvement in that.
I planned on involving you, just wanted to get to a certain point before we did that.
That's no problem.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
I guess there would be one thing. And that would be, one of the byproducts of this is to make everything we do a little more customer friendly. So if you are coming in to apply for one of these things, why should you have to weed through 20 things providing information when all we need is 5 or 10? So I love the crux of this. It's better for staff, and it's also better for our community members that want to get these approvals. Way simpler if we can take out what doesn't have to be there. So thank you.
Anybody else have anything? I see none. Thank you so much. Move on to number 3, request to approval to purchase 2 police interceptors, SUVs. Chief Hedlund.
Thank you, Mr. President. 1040 Ford, again, has the state bid contract. When I was speaking to their staff last week, they informed me that Ford intends to close, or their information is that Ford intends to close the order for the 2025 model years at some point in time during October. They're not sure when they'll open up the next round of bids, whether that'll be a 2026 model year or whether they might reopen the 2025s, but their understanding is they'll close at some point in time in October. The pricing is still the same as what we paid at the end of last year for 2024, earlier this year for 2024. Well, we ordered it and have received it in 2024, but it's a 2025 model year. So that is continuing. So it'll be the same exact price as what we paid for vehicle that actually just arrived this past week. But we probably, unfortunately, as you're all aware, everything is kind of slow in the vehicle world right now. And the upfitters, the people that do all the installation for the cars, they're months behind. When there was the backlog, when vehicles weren't being produced at all of a sudden they started getting just dumped on once the vehicles started to be produced. So they're a long ways behind. So the one we received, we probably aren't going to actually see on the street until right around the new year, if not even early 2025. So I'd like to get these vehicles ordered. For one, to make sure we get the 2025 is at the lowest possible price, and then also just to make sure we get them, period, since it's a little bit of an unknown as to what's going to be going on as we move into actual 2025. The vehicles we're looking to replace, the current one is going to replace a vehicle that already had, as of last week, over 99,000 miles, the one that the car that just came in, and like I said, that's not going to hit the street until the new year at the earliest, so that'll be well over 100,000 by the time it's replaced. The two that I'm requesting to be purchased would be replacing vehicles that as of last week were just under 97,000 miles. Those will also be well over 100,000 miles by the time we get into the new year. And I'm personally not comfortable having our officers out driving emergency vehicles with over 100,000 miles on it. It's the reality sometimes, but I certainly would hope that we don't have to push it beyond this next budgeting cycle. I do understand our budget isn't finalized, and that's why I did confirm with 1040 that we can place an order for 2 now, and if budgetary requirements force us to scale back to 1, they said that won't be an issue.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief? Mayor?
1 year ago, did you have to take one of these out of the budget and then kick it out to this next year?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think this is, as you say, between the mileage and everything else, I think this is important that we go ahead.
Anybody else have anything? Seeing none, sir? Thank you so much. Number 4, request to hire recreation coordinator, Mr. King.
Council President, City Council, and Mayor. Long time Park and Recs. I think everybody knows how vital that position is to our department, and with the timing kind of being in the middle of our winter recreation, would like to seek approval to start the advertisement and open the civil service hiring process. As far as budget impact, the position is budgeted at a grade 15, step 1 for 2025. So there could be some cost savings there depending on how things shake out with health insurance, going from a step 10 to a step 1. My recommendation would be to authorize staff to start the hiring process and advertise for hiring recreation.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. King on that? See none, sir? Thank you. Number 5, presentation on recreation facility improvement and sales tax vote. Mr. King.
Thank you again, everyone. The recreation facility improvement and sales tax vote is fastly approaching. It's been a long process with many challenges, and now is a great time to recap how we arrived at this point and outline a plan to move forward. We will discuss the sales tax option, why the sales tax option was selected as a preferred method of funding the recreation improvements, the importance of these facilities in our community, the next step moving forward, timelines, and if the sales tax is approved, what that looks like and what it looks like if it isn't. So on the timeline here, it says here that starts in 2019, but we all know that conversations were starting even prior to that. But that's the first time the city took and started a study on the feasibility of the arenas. And they had a full head of steam going and everything was going great. And they were going to take it to an election in 2020. unfortunately with COVID-19, that shut down any local sales tax legislation until the next year, so that kind of pumped the brakes on it. In 2021, the sales tax submittal was restarted. City Council approves restarting the sales tax. And then we get into 2023, when the City Council then approved us to go in front of the legislation and ask for the sales tax, which pretty much kind of brings us right up to now. So there's a lot of things that happened in between there, but those are kind of the highlights. The sales tax, as a general overview, what is the city asking for? We're asking our residents to approve a sales tax of 1% for up to 20 years at $14.745 million to be used at the,
There we go, a little better. To be used at the Civic Center Sports Complex and the VFW Arena. What does a yes vote mean? By voting yes on both these ballot questions, you would be approving a 1% sales tax for a sales tax increase up to 20 years. What does that mean for the Civic Center? This measure would allow the city to finance remodeling, upgrades, and additions to the Civic Center Sports Complex for 20 years. This measure would also allow for renovations to the existing Civic Center, along with the possibility of a new multi-use turf baseball field, or I should say ball field, multi-sport turf there. And then at the VFW Arena, this measure would allow the city to finance the reconstruction upgrade of the VFW Arena for up to 20 years. It would also allow for upgrades and enhancements to the VFW Arena. So both site-specific, 2 questions on the ballot, one specifically for the Civic Center, one specifically for the VFW Arena. Why was a sales tax chosen? Why were those decisions made? A sales tax is a one-time charge that is applied at the point of purchase on all eligible goods and services in East Grand Forks. This sales tax is collected from both local residents and visitors, helping to fund community projects. So the big takeaway there is visitors, because they can help share in the cost. Research shows that through local sales tax, non-residents can pay between 30% and 15% of the project's cost, reducing the financial burden of the local community. I think that's a big takeaway there. The main reason that the sales tax was chosen is because we could get people that were coming into our community to use the facilities to help pay for it. And also, we've had success using sales tax in the past. In 2016, the city implemented a 1% local sales tax to rehab the Sherlock Park swimming pool. It got 70% voter approval and raised an average of $85,000 per month. I think this is a great example of what sales tax can do in the community. The swimming pool, since the sales tax and being redone, has been a huge success. It sees over 20,000 users each season. The sales tax was paid off in 2022, so I think that's just a great example, a great successful example of what local sales tax can do for a community of our size. Why reinvest in recreation facilities? Why is it important? By supporting local youth recreation programs in the community, or helping kids develop many lifelong important skills, including teamwork, confidence, leadership, discipline, and supporting a healthy lifestyle. Community pride is often tied to local sports teams and athletes who represent our community on state, collegiate, and professional stages. Through the use of these facilities, we've had a lot of success in our winter programming, and there's a lot of pride that goes along with that, and a lot of tradition as well. So, and then probably one of the most important reasons is economic impact. A study in 21 and 22 done by the University of Minnesota showed that the winter programming and the use of these facilities generated $2.1 million worth of economic impact for our community. 574,000 of that coming from county residents, while supporting 40 jobs. The major industries that had benefited from that was hotels, restaurants, repairs and maintenance, construction, real estate, and management companies. So all important, bringing money into our community. What were the project goals? Through our project goals for this are to transform participant and user experience and performance through upgraded facility amenities, improve functionality, improve the operating efficiency of the buildings, and improve safety and access for all participants and spectators. So what does a project budget for this look like? Here we've kind of got it broken down into 3 different columns. The first column, the sales tax column, outlines how the dollars are going to be used. So here we have $4.745 million for the Civic Center Arena itself. We have $2 million earmarked for a ball field, and then we have $8 million for the VFW Arena. And then under fundraising sources, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but we have some shortfalls when it comes to the baseball field, but we're confident that with some fundraising, we'll be able to add those amenities. And on the final one, it kind of goes down total costs, so it breaks everything down. If we reach our goal of fundraising and with the sales tax, we could look at a total project cost of $26.5 million roughly. Fundraising seemed like the most fiscally responsible way to go about getting those extra amenities. Earmarking the $2 million through working through the building committee, earmarking that $2 million seems like a good seed basically to start with, and knowing that the city's wants these facilities as well. We had to kind of cherry pick through all the different things that we needed to do at the Civic Center, knowing that without getting a ball field, with wanting a ball field to be a part of this project. So a lot of time was spent at the building committee level going through all these different amenities that we need. These next 2 slides, I'll go through them pretty quickly just because it's a lot of, I just wanted you to have these guys' slides in your hand in case you wanted to look back on them. These are just broken down line item by line item, what's going to be repaired, an estimate of what it costs. These estimates are in 2025 dollars, so these are for next construction season. Same with the VFW Arena, kind of gives you a high-level breakdown of everything we plan to do there. This next slide is a before and after example from White Bear Lake. White Bear Lake had a facility very similar to the VFW Arena, and so when we found out how much money was going to be available and how we wanted to tackle that project, we kind of honed in on this as a project to mirror it after. So you can see in the before and afters, before ceiling was in bad repair, dim lighting, didn't have a whole lot of pop. After the renovations are done, there you see the low E ceiling with the upgraded LED lights, followed by a paint job and some facelift and some new signage. Really makes the building pop and takes an older building that's in need of repair and makes it a nice part of the community. We touched on the baseball field on a few slides earlier. The Civic Center, we've broken it down into a 2-phase enhancement plan. Phase 1 would be the fundraising to get the baseball field. So with the $2 million at the sales that we'd have from the sales tax, we would reach out to community members and businesses and organizations through a fundraising committee to come up with the rest of the dollars there for that. That would be phase 1. If we were able to find a donor who was generous enough to take on the bulk of that, we would look at phase 2, which would be an expansion off the side of the Civic Center, which would have an updated lobby, locker rooms, a new south parking lot that would be in the front of the building. So that kind of ties into, if we can get through phase 1, then we would set our sights to phase 2. So if the sales tax passes, what does that look like? There's a lot of work to do. Starting in November through March, we'll be looking at design and planning. Architects and engineers will work to finalize a lot of these details and put plans together. March and April, we'll be working to get bidding and contractor selection, putting out projects for bids. April and May gets us into the preparation phase, so hopefully we have our contractor selected, doing pre-con meetings, doing site surveys, getting the materials ordered, lining up the logistics, and getting final approval on all our projects. And then construction would hopefully start in as early as June or July. yeah, with everything in place, hopefully June would be better than July, just based on what I've talked with other communities on how long it takes to redo the ice plant and the floor and everything like that. But that's what it looks like. That's where the process looks like if it passes. And then what if it doesn't pass or only a certain site passes? Through all this, we have 3 projects that we've identified that I would say are need to be done in the next 3 to 5 years. And those 3 projects are the VFW R22 ice plant refrigeration system and ice floor. We know that back in 2020, the EPA phased out any R22 ice plants, making it virtually impossible to get any parts for this. And the refrigerant that runs through the lines, I shouldn't say impossible to get, but not very cost effective, extremely expensive. Supplies are still dwindling because people are still trying to there's leaky systems out there that they're still trying to fill them with refrigerant. So that's the first one, and that comes with a price tag of about $2.6 million. And this is a system that I think we all know is living off borrowed time. It was a refurbished system installed, I believe, in 2001. And it was almost 20 years old at that time. The only way that we're even to keep this system running now is because we have good vendors in town and contacts that have been scavenging parts off used systems throughout the state, knowing what we have sitting in our arena and keeping them on the shelves for us for when we do have repairs. But this system is one breakdown away from just being completely obsolete. And then the second one, I would say, is a Civic Center ice floor. If you look, it's kind of hard to see on the picture here, but if you can see this red dot here on the lower corner, that's glycol that's seeping up through the ice. So there's a crack in the line somewhere. It's not as easy as we see the glycol there. Let's just start digging there and figure out where it is. What happens is as these lines break, they travel along the line to find wherever the crack is, and then that's where it starts coming up. So we know that we have a leak in the Civic Center floor. We don't know exactly where it is. We have a guess that it's in that vicinity, and if we had to take an educated guess, it's probably closer to the boards because there's mechanical connections inside the boards, and typically that's where it fails. So that would be number 2 at a price tag of about $1.3 million. And then the last one is the VFW roof. VFW roof, you can see there, is in desperate repair. We had a study done on it, I think 4 years ago, and that was identified as one of the major roofs that should be replaced as soon as possible. So that would be the 3. That carries a price tag of about 1.2, just rounding up the numbers. If you take those 3 projects and you put them all together, you're looking at about $5.2 million in repairs in just those 3 projects that I feel should be repaired as soon as possible. So knowing that, how would we fund those projects? And we basically have 3 buckets we can take from. Number 1 is property tax. Number 2 would be the build and maintenance fund. And then number 3 would be the city reserves, would be the 3 options to pay for those projects. We know that why I talk about the visitors back a few slides ago is because if we take out of these 3 funds, it puts the burden on our shoulders to make all those repairs. Where if we go with a local sales tax and it's approved by the residents, then the visitors and other people who are coming through our community can help pay for some of those repairs. Questions?
Questions from Dale?
I got a few of them.
Okay.
Let's start with the leak in the floor, just because you just talked about that. But there's a company out there that can pinpoint exactly where that's leaking underneath that floor, and they're about 97% accurate.
Okay.
I think we should look at that instead of tearing up that whole floor just to find one little leak.
Well, the floor is towards the end of its useful life. So even if we repair that floor, it's not to say that there isn't a future leak. So
what do you call its useful life?
that floor is almost.
I mean, it's concrete. How do you?
Well, it's the piping inside the concrete is
Okay.
poly, and then it's got mechanical. It's got steel ends on it where it loops through the corners.
Yep.
Where it probably is leaking is on one of those mechanical joints. I think, I would say when they're installing these systems, they plan for them to be in that 15 to 20-year plan. Being that we're going against a sales tax and we're going to have this funds and we're going to upgrade everything else. We've upgraded the ice plant. I think now would be a great time to replace that floor. I am not familiar with the company that you're talking about, and I'd be interested in looking into it. The companies that I've talked to that deal with this on a regular basis, once you start cutting into these pipes and trying to pinpoint these leaks, there's no guarantees that they're going to work, and a lot of times it makes it a lot worse than it does better because these pipes are inside the concrete, and you have to bust out the concrete, then you have to first you have to probably make a saw cut, and let's say you want to take out a 4x4 square. So you make a saw cut, cut out a 4x4 square, pull that out, you got to replace all the piping that's in that 4x4 square. Then you can pressure test it to make sure it holds before you pour the concrete back on. Once you've added another mechanical connection to this and to a system that's already probably aged out, and so now the next maybe a year, maybe 2 years, you're looking at a leak in a different corner or somewhere else. Just seems like that now with the money available would be the time to replace that floor, since it's going to have to be replaced in the.
I'd like to see you talk to that company and talk to somebody that's in the business of fixing instead of replacing, because they're going to talk you into replacing.
Yeah, and I can tell you the people that I've talked
That's what those
to
companies do. That's how they make their money.
are the ones that fix and not replace, but I would certainly be up to talking with this.
And I can't tell you the name of the company, but I know it's out there, and you can find out if you talk to, well, it used to be Midwest, it's Absolute now,
Sure.
refrigeration.
Yep, and
And I
we
think
use
they
them
can
as
get
vendors
you-
as well.
I think they can get you that name and probably a phone number or whatever. I'd like to see you look at that option.
Definitely.
And we'll move on to what is the sales tax? A sales tax now is something that you're paying sales tax on your cell phone bill and everything correctly, so all that, everything you're paying.
If
all coming
it's
off
a
that.
purchase that happens within the city of East Grand Forks, then
Yeah.
yes.
So if you go to the grocery store and buy groceries, you're paying 1%. If you go to the Leisureland and buy a camper, you're paying another 1%.
Certain groceries, yeah. Processed food.
So I just want to make that clear that, what people's going to be,
Yeah.
when you talk a sales tax, it's not just a matter of, going to get an ice cream cone and paying a sales tax. It's everything that you do in life, basically,
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you talked about the ball field on here.
Mm-hmm.
And on the referendums that I seen a ballot yet last night. On the referendums, it says nothing about that. And the other thing on the referendum, it says, the last sentence in there says, and anything we deem that comes up that we want to do. And I talked to you about this.
Yep.
And you explained it to me, but I think you need to explain it to everybody.
Yeah, no,
And
so-
the reason I say that is because, to me, that kind of scares me, because we could continue doing whatever we want
Right.
to do, and,
And that's written that way, and that's all, approved through state legislation. It was approved by the city council before we sent it into the county. That verbiage is written that way so that, say, this floor, like you just mentioned, we're talking about, this has been, the plan is to replace the floor. We're looking at the floor. Now we get into the sales tax, it's approved. We find a vendor who can repair the floor. Now we have some extra money that we could use maybe for an additional HVAC system or something within the Civic Center complex, which includes the ball field and the whole Civic Center property. Now we have the ability to still use that money to make a repair, say for the parking lot, a different way to repair the parking lot. Now we can still use that money. We're just not directly tied to the floor, is why it's written that way.
right. And if we could fix that floor, then we might have enough money to put that roof on the VFW.
Right, two separate projects though, right? Two very separate projects. Are you talking about if it doesn't pass?
Well, no, I'm talking about because
The 6.475
Yeah.
has to be spent at the Civic Center. It can't be spent anywhere else. It can't be spent at Stouts Park, can't be moved over to the VFW to be used there. It can only be used at that facility. And the 8 million for the VFW is the same. It can't be spent anywhere else. It has to be spent on that project. So we can't use those to fund anything else.
Okay, so, and then back to the ball field. So the ball field would only be done if you fundraise
Fundraising.
enough money to do that,
Correct. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all I have for right now.
Mayor?
You know, I've been visiting the neighborhoods here lately and talking to our residents, and several have raised that exact same concern that you had, that other items as would be necessary. And one thing I reminded them that I would just call to all of our attention is, through the process of inflation happening and then the time passing, this project has been scaled down and down and down and down to the bare essentials. And if there could be a few added features coming in, I guarantee those are coming through fundraising. But the crux of this really is some great long-term maintenance and setting ourselves up for a really nice set of facilities. But there are no frills left in here. And if there could be anything added back, it would come through fundraising. And I think the residents wanted to hear that. You know, that we're not going to turn around and say, hey, it costs less to do this, so let's do something completely unusual. We will not have money to do any frills with this if both of these pass. Still going to be good, honest maintenance and setting ourselves up for the future with nice facilities.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Anything else, sir? Karen?
Just wanted to put a little bit of a different spin on the pseudo-negative connotation that you're putting on the 1% sales tax, from the standpoint of, we don't ever think twice about crossing the river and spending our money in Grand Forks, and spending our money on taxes in Grand Forks that go to fund just exactly what we're asking our residents to do. So although it does sound like a lot of money, and I would have to pay it also, I really do believe that it is a reinvestment back into our own community, not just for youth sports, but the idea that these programs really truly build our community, where the people who go through these programs come back and want to live within our community and take jobs within the city. These programs do supply not only our youth with activities, but it also supplies some of our youth with jobs that they can work in throughout their high school and college careers. So I really believe that this is an investment back into our community on more than just levels of youth sports.
Mr. Riedel?
Just to add to what Karen just said, the amount of dollars brought into the community by teams coming to play at these facilities, eat at our restaurants, shop at our grocery stores, maybe our liquor stores, is all taxable dollars that will come back to the community that aren't coming from our citizens. So it's a win-win on the sales tax.
Because the facilities have that regional benefit.
Exactly.
That's how that can happen.
Exactly.
Mr. Helms?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I wasn't being negative about this. I just wanted everybody to understand that this is everything that you do in life, this 1% sales tax. And yeah, if we can get everybody that comes into the country, into the city to pay it for us, if they want to do that, that's great. But I just wanted everybody to understand it's not just one certain item, or, you know, it's everything, so.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. King? I appreciate you bringing this. Thank you so much. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Helms. Second by Riedel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried, meeting adjourned.